Hi friends, this is a really quick scrap buster video building off of that technique I came up with a few weeks ago to apply heat transfer vinyl to the back of cork and sewing vinyl. Now, I am going to be demonstrating this in Cricut Design Space, but you don't need a Cricut. You can simply take a rectangle and an X-Acto knife and ruler and cut evenly spaced kind of slits all the way across, leaving an area at the top that isn't cut. And then you just proceed with rolling the tassel like this, and then you have a tassel. Now, these are some that I finished here, and these ones here I've just cut off one of these fringes or two, and then applied the wrong side as contrast. Play with these, do whatever you like with them. If you need more details or have questions, you can go ahead and leave those and I will answer them just as soon as I see them down in the comment section. This one uses a key fob, and I fold it rather than rolled it, and then I put some little rhinestones on there with some hot glue, and I think that this is a pretty cute option. If you remember, or if you didn't know, in the H2O to go how-to video, I showed you how we use color blocking to send different objects to different mats. So if we want something to print on, or if we want something to cut out on vinyl, then we assign it one color, and if we want it to be on cotton woven, we assign it a different color in Design Space. This time we're doing the reverse. We have all different colors of vinyl and cork, and this time we're going to tell everything in Design Space that everything is one color so that it prints out all on this one mat, or cuts out rather. The secret this time is that we're using these grid lines. So we're paying attention to the fact that this piece here goes from 1 to 7 and all the way from 1 to 4. And so when we design and we use the content from the Design Space Studio, we're going to make sure that we resize our objects so that it's a little bit smaller than this space here. And we're going to just simply multiply them and then resize them for each of these areas on the grid. So if you give me just a second, I will meet you over at the computer. And please know that at the end of this video, I will have a link to the how to apply heat transfer vinyl to the back of your materials in case you didn't already see that one. Okay, from a blank canvas in Cricut Design Space, I want to find these pre-existing projects, and I'm using them in Cricut Access rather. And so I need to search projects. I'm going to search for tassel, and a few different options come up. And this is one that I know works and that I like, but there are others that you might want to kind of browse through as well. I'm going to choose this leather keychain here, and I'm going to say that I want to customize it. Click the customize button, and I want to replace the object that's on my Design Space mat. And so these are the elements that come in already to go. However, I need to make sure that this is resized to fit on that grid that I showed you just a little bit ago. And so the first rectangle that I have is 7 inches wide by 4 inches tall. And when this comes into Cricut Design Space, it is 8.6 inches wide by 3.948. So the height would work for us, but not the width. I'm also going to select all of these items here and bring them down so that they're better located for us. I also need to delete these 2 items. These are those accent strips, and I don't want them for my project, so I'm going to go ahead and delete them. And this is our little loop. Now, since we're doing this kind of bit where we're customizing this and we are getting this to try to fit on scraps of paper, I'm going to delete this as well, because at the end, I can just simply run my rotary cutter or my X-Acto blade and cut this last strip off here and use that instead. So I'm going to go ahead and hit delete for here. And now I want to duplicate this because I need to have one for later. And I'm now going to change the height and the width of this one. So 3.948 is just about right, but at the very tail end of my first square, it tips up a bit since it's a scrap. So to be safe, I'm going to change this to be a little bit shorter. First, I need to unclick this locked aspect ratio button here. I'm going to tell it that I want it to be I'm going to do 6.75 inches wide, and let's do 3.75 inches tall. And that will be our blue piece here. Okay, so I have this one object here, and it is 6.75 by 3.75, and I'm going to duplicate that because it is pretty close to the next shape that I have, which is the orange. And that one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 high by about 6.5 wide. So let's see, I'm going to turn this block aspect ratio off again. And wide, I want it to be, I'm going to say 6.25 just to be safe. And height, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4. So okay, perfect. Now, because I want these to all print on the same mat, or cut rather, I don't know why I say print, because I want these to all cut on the same mat, I am keeping the color all the same, even though in real life they're not the same color. Now I need to choose Make It. And this is where I will go and tell the machine where I want each of these squares aligned. It's a little bit tricky because I have to figure out what the size is on each of these, and I do that by looking at the grid. So let's see, this one actually needs to come up here to the top. And this one here butts up right next to this one. Perfect. I'm just comparing it to the real world mat. And this one here is down at the 12. So I'm moving that one down. This one, I need to move to my different mat. So I'm going to tell it to move there. And now I'm going to close. There. And now I'm going to close. And then this one, oops, I need to have that one here. But this one I need to rotate. So I'm going to grab this little handle here and rotate it. And I do want it rotated at a perfect angle. There we go. And needing to double check here because I'm seeing that this is incorrect because in real world crystal, it does not overlap on like this. I'm not editing this out because I think it's important that I show you when I make mistakes so that you can see how I fix them. So I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel here because I need to fix one of these and I'm not sure which one it is. Looking here, this one goes over to the 9. That's what the bottom one does. Okay, so the bottom one is absolutely correct. It's this one here that I need to fix. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel. And I need to make this one 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 rather than 9. So I'm going to hit 7 and enter. All right, let's try making it again. I need to go back here, take this, click and move it to this mat here and say confirm. And then close. And then I need to bring this guy over here. And it doesn't matter whether I rotate it to the left or to the right, just as long as I rotate it. And there we have it. Okay, now that looks more aligned with what I have in on my actual mat. Since we started over again, I have to verify these guys again. Perhaps move these. That looks good. Okay, so I'm ready to continue. I have a mix of vinyl and cork, but with the setting that I use, it works equally well for both base types. And as soon as it sees my maker, and the material that I like to choose here is non-adhesive vinyl 20 gauge. It uses a fine point blade, which is nice, especially for cutting short, tight curves. And it's also one that comes with your machine. So it's kind of a bonus in that way. If you give me just a second, I will load this into the machine. And then I'll change the camera angle so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to move my machine forward just a little bit so that I can make sure that there's nothing behind there, that the mat has plenty of room to go all the way through back and forth to the back of the machine. I've verified that these grid lines here match with what's on my screen. I've loaded the mat and I've got all the material settings ready to go. Now I just need to hit the go button. Okay, I'm not going to make you watch this entire slow process. I'll check in with you when it gets done with this pass. All right, it's gone through and it's finished. It's at 100% and it wants me to unload. But before I do that, I need to make sure that it has cut all the way through. And because I have different kinds of vinyl and cork, I need to check each area to make sure it cut through. So let me check this cork first. And it did, it cut cleanly through, that's great. Check this vinyl here. Okay, this vinyl did not cut all the way through. So we need to push this through again. It's important that we not unload our mat and that instead we ignore this flashing button and go right to the Cricut button, go again. It will just simply go through and cut again. It's not going to hurt that one by cutting it a second time. And I'll check in with you when it's done with the second round. It's run through the second time, and let's go ahead and take a look at it and see how it did. If it's ready to pull off or not. And check this one. And this one looks like it's cut mostly through. If it's not finished, it looks like we can just pull this up with our hands and get it off of there. This one we already know is done. This one may be our most stubborn. Let me check it. Oh, yep, we're going to be able to cut that away. And last but not least, this guy. Okay, so we're ready to unload the mat. Now I'll just go ahead and go through and take all of these off of the mat, and I'll meet you back at the workstation. Now it's time to start assembling our tassels. We're going to hold them together using this Fabri-Tac, and this handy little number I got at my local Ace Hardware, and it's a glue tip or a caulking gun tip. It works much better than the one that comes with this, so I got this at the checkout area of my local Ace Hardware. These are clamps that I got at the Dollar Tree. You can also use our favorite little sewing clamps as well, clips. This is our cutout piece of vinyl. This is a scrap piece of the Dollar Tree cutting boards that I have left over, an X-Acto knife, and a small ruler. Before you start rolling the tassel, we need to do a couple things. You want to make sure that each of the fringes, I don't know if that's a real word or not, is loose from the others. It's easier to do it now than it is once, after you roll it. So just take a few minutes and go through that. I'm going to do that off camera. And then the other thing that we need to do, come back here, mister, is we need to cut off one of these edges here so that we can use this for the loop for the keychain. Now you can also use tassel hardware, but I wanted to keep this specific to leftover materials and not much extra. So that's why I'm not using any hardware for this. Okay, and don't worry about that little bit being slightly ragged, because that's just going to get hidden down into the tassel and no one will see it. And since this edge is a little bit wonky right here, we will just roll this to the center. Now, if you wanted to have a tassel that wasn't quite as thick, this one is going to be pretty thick once we roll it all up. You could just simply cut this in half, or cut it in to 1/3 and 2/3 over here, and then make different kind of chunky levels of tassel, if you will. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get all of these fringes unhooked, and then I'll meet you back here in just a sec. Okay, let's do just a tiny bit of glue here on the inside and the outside. I'm going to take my tassel loop, and I want to have the metallic color outward facing, so it contrasts against the tassel. Once it's rolled up, put a little bit of glue there, put it here. I'm just eyeballing how much of this is going to stick out. Okay, and we're simply going to roll this up like a cinnamon roll. And we're going to apply just a little bit of glue as we roll, every so often. Doesn't have to be with every rotation. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing. I am being careful, trying to be careful to keep this edge consistent. It's a little bit hard when I've got this tripod in front of me. So this edge here is what I'm trying to make sure that I line up. I would say that if I get going and it's kind of getting away from me, I'll just cut this off and start a new tassel. Pushing with my thumb a little bit. Time for some more glue. If I haven't mentioned it before, I will say again that this glue dries very quickly. It's very strong. It's also a pain when it gets to be kind of in there for a while. Let me pause and I will get that fixed after I do this next little rotation. Okay, because I don't want to have it come undone while I manhandle my glue, I'm going to put this clamp here. I hope that you'll find this helpful. I also hope that you, if you didn't already know that Cricut Design Space, or Cricut Access rather, has some pre-made projects, that maybe that will encourage you to explore and to look around and see what else is out there. All right, I'll be seeing you all soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.